Alrighty, folks. After an excellent week, why not spend the weekend watching the left squirm just a little bit more? Matt Walsh's Am I Racist?, the #1 documentary of the decade, is streaming exclusively at Daily Wire Plus. Not a member yet? Head on over to dailywire.com/subscribe. Use code Trump for 47% off your new annual membership. So in just a little while, we're going to be joined by the brand new senator from the state of Montana, Tim Sheehy. I had the privilege of joining him on the campaign trail during the campaign. That dude is amazing. He's just terrific. We're going to have him on in a little while, but let's begin with more winning, because let's be real about, again, I am unaccustomed to this level of optimism. It's giving me a bit of indigestion. I got to be honest with you. Maybe it's the lack of sleep. Maybe it's the fact that I could only eat vegan food when I was in Tennessee. But whatever the rationale, maybe Pepto-Bismol fixes the optimism. I don't know what the story is. Bottom line is, I'm a little optimistic because President Trump keeps making good decisions. It's almost as though all the myths that we were told about how Donald Trump was going to come into office and then immediately staff up complete idiots around himself, it's almost as though those were untrue. And we were told that by the most intelligent people. After all, Donald Trump had fired people like General James Mattis. After all, Donald Trump had been at odds with so many members of his prior administration, there would be no one left. He would be forced to dip into the bottom of the barrel. And thus far, I see precisely zero evidence that that is indeed the case. The people who are apparently doing the staffing on a wide variety of issues include people like the Vice President of the United States-elect J.D. Vance. Don Jr. is on that team. Eric Trump is on that team. You also have a bunch of Trump world insiders like Susie Wiles, like people like Brian Hook is involved in the foreign policy team. In other words, the people who are going to go into the Trump administration are not going to be jokers. They're going to be very serious people with a very serious portfolio. As mentioned, Donald Trump late yesterday announced that he would be tapping the campaign co-manager Susie Wiles as the White House chief of staff. Susie Wiles is a very serious person. She's well respected on all sides of the political spectrum inside the Republican Party. Jeb Bush has endorsed, everyone from Jeb Bush all the way to Donald Trump has endorsed Susie Wiles as chief of staff. She's a very serious politico. She obviously worked not only with Trump, but with Rick Scott down here when he was governor of Florida, with Governor DeSantis, when he was running for governor of Florida. Then she went back into the Trump campaign. She is wily, she is savvy, and she is knife sharp. I mean, she is really a solid political fighter. According to the Wall Street Journal, Susie Wiles, who led President Trump's presidential run, will become his White House chief of staff when he retakes the presidency next year, the campaign said on Thursday, making her the first woman to hold that role in American history. Remember that time when he wouldn't surround himself with strong women, according to Mark Cuban? Yeah, I feel like she's a woman. I don't know. Just going to put that out there. Trump said in a statement, Susie Wiles just helped me achieve one of the greatest political victories in American history and was an integral part of both my 2016 and 2020 successful campaigns. Susie is tough, smart, innovative, and universally admired and respected. Susie will continue to work tirelessly to make America great again. It is a well-deserved honor to have Susie as the first ever female chief of staff in U.S. history. I have no doubt she will make our country proud. Now, again, she keeps her cards real close to the vest. She's incredibly savvy, and she is not the type of person who is going to take kindly to people who do not have Team Trump's best interests at heart. So that is an excellent pick by President Trump. Again, she's well respected on pretty much every side of the Republican political spectrum. Now, the question as to how she negotiates in Congress, that one is still open. Usually the chief of staff has a lot of congressional negotiations. The good news for her is that while she doesn't have tons of experience at doing that, because again, she was campaign manager in 2016 and 2020 in part, and she didn't really involve herself in legislative affairs, she will be negotiating with Mike Johnson in the House. In the Senate leadership battle is still wide open at this point. There's a lot of speculation about who is going to take over as the Senate Majority Leader because Mitch McConnell has announced he's going to step down. There's some rumors that Rick Scott, for example, is trying to run for it. There's more than rumors. He does want the Senate Majority Leadership position. There's some members of the base who are very hot on Rick Scott, so he's a possibility. John Thune is a very solid possibility. Most of the more established members of the U.S. Senate are probably going to back Thune or John Cornyn. Honestly, any of those people will be perfectly capable of negotiating with President Trump and will do a fine job in that role. Okay. Meanwhile, President-elect Trump and his senior advisors are privately assembling short lists of candidates for top jobs in the incoming administration. Apparently, Trump's transition team, according to the Wall Street Journal, is being led by co-chair Howard Lutnick, who is, of course, involved in the campaign. He's overseeing personnel. He's put together spreadsheets with names for the former president to consider. Among the people who are being considered, National Security Advisor, the names that are coming up are Rick Grinnell. We all know him, obviously. He was Trump's former ambassador to Germany and acting director of national intelligence. Rick would do an amazing job in that role. Other potential candidates include Keith Kellogg, an octogenarian retired 3-star Army general and former NSA to Vice President Mike Pence, former Defense Department official Elbridge Colby, and Robert O'Brien, who was the last NSA under Donald Trump. Some of the people mentioned for Treasury Secretary include Scott Bessent, Keyscore Group founder, as well as billionaire investor John Paulson. Secretary of State, a few of the possibilities mentioned are Senator Bill Hagerty of Tennessee, as well as Senator Marco Rubio of Florida. Both of those would be excellent picks. Other potential candidates include O'Brien, Grinnell, and former senior State Department official Brian Hook, who is largely seen as the person compiling lists on who precisely should go into the foreign policy establishment. We'll get to Brian Hook in just a moment because he's been speaking publicly about what the administration's Iran policy is, and it is already bearing fruit. They haven't even taken office yet, and action is already happening to bring down conflict in the Middle East. As far as Secretary of Defense, some names that have been thrown out. Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Trump did give him a shout out, as you'll recall, Wednesday morning in his victory speech in Florida. Also, Republican Representative John Ratcliffe, who has served as Trump's DNI, is being put forward as a possible DOD head or CIA head. Mike Waltz, a congressman from Florida. He also is being considered as a possible DOD leader. Homeland Security, we're hearing Chad Wolf, who'd be great. We're hearing Tom Homan, who'd be great. The bottom line is, all of these names are good. Legitimately, all of these names would be not just acceptable, but excellent. And the markets are picking up on this. Okay, Washington is open for business, as Axios puts it. Mark Andreessen, an investor who backed President Trump in this race, he tweeted out this morning that he believes that we are going to be seeing unprecedented economic growth. He says, quote, America is in an economic coiled spring. We should be growing at least 4% annually, ideally 6 to 8%. Growth has been brutally suppressed since before I was born. There's so much to build. The payoff for all Americans will be incredible. That is the mood in the business community. As Axios reports, buckle up. President-elect Trump plans fast action on a business-friendly agenda of tax cuts, deregulation, and expanded energy production, his advisors tell us. By the way, all of this stuff does have a downward effect on inflation because when you have more productivity, that means more supply, and that then keeps up with demand, and then the prices drop. Deregulation means more investment. It means economic growth. It means more innovation. According to Axios, Trump plans to load his White House and cabinet with business and tech-friendly executives and stretch the powers of the presidency to force quick changes. Behind the scenes, Trump advisors believe they wasted early opportunities to grow the economy in his first term because they didn't know how to staff. See, this is the nice thing. Trump term 2, they know exactly who they have to fire. Trump is going to take office with a triumvirate. He'll have the House. He'll have the Senate. He's going to fill his top ranks with actual business leaders. The courts are largely going to support him. The people picking staff include Elon Musk, Mark Andreessen, David Sachs, and Joe Lonsdale. My goodness, what a team that's going to be. You want to talk about growing the economy? You want to talk about a productivity explosion? You want to talk about people who know how to build businesses and how markets work? You're not going to do better than that group of people. Honestly, they're all great. Meanwhile, the other power players are Howard Lutnick, chairman and CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, and Linda McMahon, who headed the Small Business Administration during Trump's first term. You're watching a bunch of CEOs come out basically celebrating Trump's win. Jeff Bezos congratulated him, obviously. He wasn't the only one. You're starting to see business people get real enthusiastic about what is coming down the pike, and they should be. Meanwhile, some of the supposed regulators, the more extreme regulators, they're going to be gone. So, for example, Gary Gensler, who's been awful. He's the head of the Securities and Exchanges Commission. He's been focused largely on preventing business from making investment. Wall Street executives are happy to see him go. He is going to be tossed out immediately. Some of the possibilities to replace him would be Dan Gallagher, chief legal officer at Robinhood and previous SEC commissioner. Meanwhile, over at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which is Elizabeth Warren's Orwellian institution to crack down on the markets, Trump is going to install a new leader at the CFPB. One name that has been floated is Todd Zwicky, a law professor at George Mason University. The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, FDIC, the chairman resigned in May. Now, the Trump administration is poised to loosen the reins somewhat at the FDIC to allow banks to actually do their business. And it is going to be a boom time in American life. Everybody who's in business knows it. Meanwhile, Elon Musk is going to go in there and he's going to start cutting. According to the Wall Street Journal, lessons from the Elon Musk School of Management shed light on how the billionaire will go about slashing government spending in a new Trump White House. We know, for example, that when Elon Musk took over X, he fired 80% of the workforce. Increasing efficiency is something that Elon Musk is very much familiar with. Now, again, he's not going to be able to cut trillions of dollars from the budget, but there will be a rare window of opportunity to pursue spending cuts for sure. And Musk is going to go through, and a lot of these government contracts were done on a no-bid basis. You could see him reopen all of that and bring down costs solely on that basis as well. Meanwhile, federal workers are preparing for cuts, and they're preparing for the possibility of forced relocation because Donald Trump is talking about taking many of these departments and moving them outside of Washington, D.C., which is great. Gets rid of the entire swamp entirely. So what you would see, presumably, is like the Department of Agriculture would move out. You would see other departments moved out of Washington, D.C. Schedule F would strip job protections from many career federal employees in policy roles. So get ready. Trump's a-coming. And the boom is coming as well. As the Wall Street Journal says, Wall Street has rarely been more excited by an election. U.S. stocks' capitalization rose by $1.62 trillion on Wednesday, their fifth best one-day showing ever, following Donald Trump's decisive election victory. Investors are celebrating, said Jack Ablin, the chief investment officer at Crescent Capital in Chicago. The enthusiasm is especially heated in a few areas. Banks and other financial companies climbed. Investors expect regulatory scrutiny will ease. Some also expect more deal making. All of this is going to change. All of it is going to be better. In just one moment, we're going to be joined by the brand new senator from Montana. That is coming momentarily. First, ever feel like you're being watched on the internet? Unfortunately, you're not just being paranoid. You are indeed being monitored every single time you go online. Internet service providers can see every single website you visit. In the United States, they're even allowed to sell your browsing history. And yes, that includes everything you do inside that so-called incognito tab. You need to protect yourself. The way I do it is with ExpressVPN, an easy-to-use app that encrypts and reroutes all my internet traffic through secure servers. When I use ExpressVPN, my internet provider can't see what I'm doing online, which means they've got nothing to sell to advertisers. They also can't track my IP address, that unique number that identifies you on the internet. Without access to my IP address, those data brokers can't build a profile about me or sell my information to marketers. Finally, my data stays exactly where it should. With me, the best part, you don't need to be tech savvy to use it. ExpressVPN is as simple as tapping one button. They've got apps for everything. Your phone, laptop, desktop, tablet, whatever device you've got, they've covered it. No wonder it's the top-rated VPN by tech experts at CNET, The Verge, and pretty much every other major tech review site. Right now, you can take advantage of ExpressVPN's Black Friday, Cyber Monday offer to get the absolute best VPN deal you'll find all year. Use my special link, expressvpn.com/Ben. Get 4 extra months with the 12-month plan or 6 extra months with the 24-month plan totally free. That's expressvpn.com/Ben. Get an extra 4 or even 6 months of ExpressVPN for free. Also, did you know American homeowners collectively hold over $32 trillion in equity? Unfortunately, cybercriminals are increasingly targeting this wealth through a scam the FBI calls house stealing. Traditional security measures like house alarms, doorbell cameras, deadbolts can't protect you because these thieves aren't actually after your belongings, they're after your equity itself. Without title monitoring, scammers can transfer your home's title to their name using a simple document filed at the county office. Once they control your title, they can take out loans against your property or even sell it without your knowledge. The most frightening part, many victims don't discover the theft until collection notices or foreclosure warnings arrive in their mailbox. By then, the damage is done, leaving homeowners facing a financial and legal nightmare. That's why I want to tell you about Home Title Lock's triple lock protection. They monitor your title 24/7, alert you to any changes, and if the worst happens, they provide full restoration services at no out-of-pocket cost to you. Quick question. When is the actual last time you checked on your home title? Yeah, that's what I thought. Never. That's exactly what scammers are counting on. You can check on your home title today. Make sure you're not already a victim. You can get a free title history report and a 30-day free trial of triple lock protection today. Head on over to HomeTitleLock.com, use promo code Shapiro, or click the link in the description. That's HomeTitleLock.com, promo code Shapiro. Again, that's HomeTitleLock.com. Go check them out right now. Now, when it comes to foreign policy as well, foreign policy is going to be a very different look. Already, Team Trump is announcing a maximum pressure campaign against Iran, which of course is the proper strategy against Iran. They're going to dramatically increase sanctions on Iran. They're going to throttle its oil sales as part of an aggressive strategy to undercut Tehran's support of violent Middle East proxies and its nuclear program, according to people briefed on President Trump's early plans. When he takes office on January 20th, Trump's approach to Iran is likely to be colored by the knowledge that its agents tried to assassinate him and former top national security aides after they left office. Plus, Iran is believing to be seeking revenge for the 2020 Trump drone strike that killed Qasem Soleimani, the head of Iran's covert paramilitary operations. People tend to take that stuff personally, said Mick Mulroy, a top Pentagon official for the Mideast in Trump's first term. If he's going to be hawkish on any particular country designated major adversaries, it is, in fact, Iran. They're going to choke off Iran's oil income. They're going to diplomatically isolate Iran? Brian Hook, who oversaw Iran policy at the State Department in Trump's first term, is now in charge of the Trump transition for the State Department, said Thursday the president-elect had no interest in seeking to overthrow Iran's rulers. But of course, what he means by that is that the conditions are going to be made ripe for the Iranian people to do what they should do and overthrow Iran's rulers. Here's Brian Hook, again, former top State Department official. He's going to be in charge, apparently, of not just Iran policy, but staffing of the State Department. That place needs to be cleaned out stem to stern. It is rife with foreign policy dolts, and Brian Hook needs to go in there with a chainsaw and just start cutting people. Here's Brian Hook explaining about foreign policy.
But in my personal experience, I know that when we deter the Iranian regime, you have the countries that you described who are on the front lines of Iranian aggression, doing everything they can to be a part of that deterring Iran. President Trump has no interest in regime change. The future of Iran will be decided by the Iranian people. I think we've said that repeatedly over 4 years. But what President Trump did say in Riyadh was that he would isolate Iran diplomatically and weaken them economically so that they can't fund all of the violence that's going with the Houthis in Yemen, Hamas, Hezbollah, PIJ, and these proxies that run around Iraq and Syria today, all of whom destabilize Israel and our Gulf partners.
He, of course, is exactly correct about all of that. Now, the anchor over at CNN then asked about, well, how are you going to do the Abraham Accords when the Saudis have said that they want a Palestinian state? And Brian Hook properly says, hey, we provided a peace plan when we were in office. It was the Jared Kushner peace plan. And it provided a Palestinian state possibility after a bunch of conditions. And we were ready to move forward with that. That's the plan we're going to use moving forward here.
If you look at the really important work that Jared Kushner did when he was essentially leading so much of the diplomacy in the Middle East, he put forward a political and economic vision for peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians that many Arab governments officially said was a credible, good faith effort, and they called for both sides to come to the table. That plan, which Israel endorsed, had a path to a two-state solution. This war, the October 7th attack by Hamas, has really not put anybody in much of a mood to be talking about this subject, because obviously Hamas doesn't believe in a two-state solution, nor do they want a ceasefire. And after what Hamas did on October 7th, there are many Israelis right now who are focused on other things, specifically keeping them safe from this kind of evil terrorism that they endured on October 7th.
Okay, that is a realistic view of the situation. And let us be real about something. The reason that the Saudi foreign minister has been talking about the Palestinian state so much is because Joe Biden has been talking about the Palestinian state so much. It's not possible for the Saudi kingdom to be anti-Palestinian state more than the Americans. Well, the reality is, do you think the Saudis want a Palestinian state that will be sponsored, funded, giant terror apparatus against Saudi? Because that's who would be Iran would be funding that. That would be an Iranian proxy state. You think Saudi wants that? You think anyone in the region wants that except for Iran? The answer, of course, is no. You know how I know that? Because Jordan is 70% Palestinian. Anytime they want, they could have a Palestinian state by holding an election. You know why they won't? Because the minute they do hold an election, every member of the Hashemite dynasty will be hanging from a crane. That is the reason. Okay, by the way, the Biden administration on their way out there doing precisely what you would think. They've set the world on fire. They did, particularly in the Middle East. They set the world on fire. You can tell that the stark difference between the Trump administration 2.0 and the Biden administration, I mean, it is astonishing. It's truly amazing. So Trump wins. Within one day, Qatar, which is a cutout for the Iranian regime, Qatar sort of plays this weird middle of the road path with regard to Iran, where they share oil fields with Iran, so they're very friendly with Iran, but they then try to present themselves as negotiators with the West, which is why you'll see Qatar Airways that is advertised in Western stadiums and all the rest of this sort of stuff. Well, Qatar, knowing that Trump is coming in, has apparently, according to Khan News, which is Israel's public broadcast system, has now notified Hamas officials staying in Qatar they are no longer welcome and they must immediately make preparations to depart. That's all it took was Donald Trump winning. He didn't have to do anything. And Qatar was like, oh man, he's going to come in. He's going to punish us for being friendly with Hamas, isn't he? Probably should kick these people to the curb. It just shows you what a change the Trump administration is from the Biden administration. What's the Biden administration doing? Well, meanwhile, according to the Washington Free Beacon, just before Tuesday's presidential election, the Biden-Harris administration quietly waived mandatory terrorism sanctions on the embattled Palestinian government, even as it determined the government's leaders are paying imprisoned terrorists and fomenting violence in breach of American law. The State Department, in a non-public notice to Congress, determined that the Palestinian Authority and Palestine Liberation Organization are not complying with agreements to curb terrorism against Israel and to end their so-called pay-to-slave program, which hands money to imprisoned terrorists for killing Jews. Those violations should trigger American sanctions, but the Biden-Harris administration used its executive power to waive the sanctions. So they are removing sanctions from the terror-sponsoring Palestine Liberation Organization and Palestinian Authority. The State Department told Congress, quote, a blanket denial of visas to PLO members and PA officials to include those who travel to the U.S. in advance to advance U.S. goals and objectives is not consistent with U.S. government's expressed willingness to partner with the PLO and PA leadership. And not coincidentally, it turns out the Biden administration's willingness to humor all of the stupidity and garbage trotted out by Hamas and its media allies has real consequences. So, last night, there was a pogrom over in Amsterdam. So while you have complete mentally ill people like Jen Rubin over at the Washington Post declaring that Donald Trump, the most pro-Israel president in American history, who won a giant chunk of Jews in New York, in New Jersey, in Florida, in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, while she declares that he's Hitler, actual little Hitlers are running around in the streets of Amsterdam beating up Jews. Okay, that's exactly what happened last night in Amsterdam. So what happened is that there was a soccer match between a soccer team called Maccabi Tel Aviv and Ajax, which is a national team in Amsterdam, based in Amsterdam. And on the way in, apparently, some of the Israeli fans were shouting rude things about I guess there was some sort of scrum in which Israelis and Palestinian advocates were shouting at each other, and some Palestinian flags which had been put out there in order to tick off the Israelis were torn down. None of that's good. What is an actual pogrom is what happened after the match. So after the match, apparently, Israelis and Jews walk out of the match. They're not protected by police outside the stadium. And from what I am told by people who are on the ground, there were bands of young radical Muslims at basically every street corner waiting for people to attack them. And so you end up with film like this in Amsterdam. They're literally running after people in the streets and attacking them in the streets of Amsterdam. It went on for like an hour and a half with almost no police response. You can see there a Jewish man, presumably being kicked in the street.
Where are you going, Asabi? Where are you going? Where are you going?
Sagiv Barzani, according to the Wall Street Journal, a fan who attended the game, said that he and other Israelis fell to the ground as they tried to escape the attackers. A planned demonstration against the Israeli team had been moved away from the stadium. Protesters still tried to go there and then clashed with police. After the game, according to Barzani, his head was stomped on as people chanted "Free Palestine." One fan was being punched in the face, another one being cut in the face with a key. I thought I was going to die. Everyone was running like crazy. People were being thrown into the canals of Amsterdam. People were punching and kicking people, including in Amsterdam's Central Dam Square. One clip filmed from inside a car driving on the sidewalk showed it hitting a pedestrian who rolls over it and onto the ground as a voice is heard saying, "Drive over him." Another video showed a man trying to offer his money to assailants who screamed, "For the children and free Palestine now." So, again, just wonderful behavior here by the pro-Hamasniks who have now spread throughout the West. When you're running around the streets beating up Jews, that's what you call a pogrom. That is legitimately like the definition of a pogrom at this point. It was so bad that the king of the Netherlands, Willem-Alexander, called up the Israeli president, Isaac Herzog, and apologized. He said, quote, "We failed the Jewish community of the Netherlands during World War II, and last night we failed again." Early this morning, Dutch Prime Minister Dick Schoof updated the president on all actions being taken and added his strong condemnation of the incidents. Meanwhile, Geert Wilders, who of course has been the big winner of the last election in the Netherlands, he said, "I just spoke by phone with Israeli Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu and told him of my anger and shame on what happened in Amsterdam. There's no place for anti-Semitism and Jew hate in the Netherlands. I will do all I can to protect Jews and stop and expel Islamic radicals." He also added that this is the consequence of what happens when you allow unchecked radical Islamic immigration into your country. He says they governed for 10 years and looked the other way for 10 years. We were not allowed to talk about Islam as a source of anti-Semitism. They did not dare to kick criminals out of the country. And now we have a Jew hunt in Amsterdam. Well, I mean, those are the wages of propaganda that was winked at and nodded at by the Biden administration, by a West that decided unfettered immigration from areas that hate the West was a genius idea, that softness on terrorism was actually going to be of benefit to the West. That's just some of the wages. Well, all that's about to come to a screeching halt under Trump 2.0. Because what the United States does has radical ramifications for the rest of the world. In just a moment, we'll get to the situation over in the Senate. First, did you know you spend a third of your life sleeping? That's around 25 years of your life in bed. With numbers like that, your mattress isn't just furniture. It's an investment in your well-being. That's where Helix Sleep comes in. I never thought a mattress could make such a difference until I actually tried Helix. Well, what sets them apart? Well, unlike those one-size-fits-all brands, Helix offers 20 different mattress options because they understand everyone's sleep needs are unique. It all starts with their sleep quiz, a game changer for finding your perfect match. When I mentioned my struggle with lower back pain on softer mattresses, they recommended their medium firm option. The result is I'm sleeping like a baby in the hours where I don't have to cover what's going on. Looking for that cloud-like feeling? You need their Luxe. You want the ultimate sleep experience? You need their Elite. You need extra support? The Helix Plus has got you covered. Forget those awkward mattress store visits. Helix will deliver directly to your door. Helix is so confident in their product, they give you 100 nights to try it out. That's over 3 months to test your mattress in the real world. Plus, every mattress comes with a 10 to 15-year warranty. So if you'd like to sleep as soundly as I do, head on over to helixsleep.com/Ben and take that sleep quiz. Plus, Helix is offering up to 25% off site-wide and 2 free Dream Pillows with any mattress purchase. Even better, Helix is offering a free bedding bundle, which is 2 Dream Pillows, a sheet set, a mattress protector with any Luxe or Elite mattress order. That's right, just go to helixsleep.com/Ben. That's helixsleep.com/Ben. With Helix, better sleep starts right now. Also, in the age of mindless consumerism and instant gratification, finding a gift that actually matters seems about as likely as enjoying a vegan potluck. But fear not, I've found it. The thing that might just restore your faith in gift giving this upcoming holiday season. Paint Your Life transforms your photos into a one-of-a-kind, beautiful, hand-painted portrait by professional artists. Imagine giving a hand-painted portrait of a moment that actually matters. The process is really, really straightforward. I've done it myself. No jumping through hoops, no bureaucratic nightmare. It takes less than 5 minutes to order a custom-made, hand-painted portrait. You simply choose a photo, and Paint Your Life transforms it into a painting. Again, I received a painting from them over a year ago. It hangs in my house for the whole family to enjoy. It's actually from the day of my son's Brit Milah. It's a beautiful picture of my entire family, plus the doggo. Here's the best part. You can combine photos or add elements to upgrade existing photos. You want to include a long-lost relative in your family portrait? You can actually do that. If you want to put yourself in a location you've always dreamed of visiting, you can do that as well. You get to approve every stage of the process and request as many modifications as you want to ensure the portrait is painted just like you wanted. You can even get your hand-painted portrait in as little as 2 weeks. So start ordering now. You'll have it in time for the holidays. This holiday season, you can give the most meaningful gift you've ever given from paintyourlife.com. There's no risk. If you don't love the final painting, your money is refunded, guaranteed. Right now, limited time offer. Get 20% off your painting. That's correct. 20% off and free shipping. To get this special offer, text the word Ben to 87204. This Ben to 87204. Paint Your Life. Celebrate the moments that matter most. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details. Alrighty. So, meanwhile, the Senate of the United States, one of the big questions was going to be, if the Democrats took over, whether they were going to kill the filibuster. And Mitch McConnell came out yesterday and said, listen, we have a system of laws in this country and customs in this country, and we're not going to kill the filibuster. Remember, these are the people who are supposed to be the threat to the system. We were told democracy is ending, according to the left. Well, it seems like when you're in the majority and then you say you're going to uphold the filibuster, that's a pretty good indicator that perhaps actually democracy is not ending.
I think one of the most gratifying results of the Senate becoming Republican, the filibuster will stand. There won't be any new states admitted that give a partisan advantage to the other side. And we'll quit beating up the Supreme Court every time we don't like a decision they make.
Okay, he is right about that. Again, your institutions of American life are safe. They are safe. This is very good. It means that we are going to have predictable government for the first time in quite a long time. Because I do not think that the Trump administration has any intentions of overrunning their appointed executive authority under the Constitution. Meanwhile, John Thune, who's a real possibility for Senate Majority Leader since Mitch McConnell is stepping down, right now the sort of inside scuttlebutt suggests that it's between Thune, who would be good. I know there are a lot of people out there who are suggesting that he would be terrible. And by the way, they're kind of using Mitch McConnell as an example of what a bad majority leader looks like. Hate to break it to you, Mitch McConnell is the most effective Senate Majority Leader in Republican history. Like, you like the Supreme Court the way it is, right? You like what President Trump did during his first term? Almost none of that is possible without Mitch McConnell being an incredibly effective leader. That's not the same thing as necessarily going on TV a lot and being charismatic. You don't have to be Newt Gingrich to be an effective Senate Majority Leader. You have to wheel, you have to deal, you have to manipulate. I mean, that's what it is. John Thune is a possibility. John Cornyn is a possibility. Rick Scott, as I say, is running for it. Here is John Thune yesterday.
I think going into it, if you looked at the polls, obviously everybody expected a tight race, but it was a very convincing, resounding win for President Trump and literally up and down the ballot. And we outperformed 2020 in 48 states and across all demographic groups, and actually did better in 2,300 countries or counties, I should say, around the country than we did 4 years ago. So this was I think, an example that the American people have said enough is enough with the Biden-Harris agenda. They're ready for a different direction for the country.
He's right, obviously. The scaremongering that is coming from the news industry is truly amazing. So you have a piece from the Washington Post titled, "Trump Win Complicates Biden's Lame Duck Foreign Policy." Well, I mean, his foreign policy is trash, so I would certainly hope so. Meanwhile, the Washington Post says 50 world leaders meet to strategize on how to deal with Trump. Well, I don't know. Maybe they ought to form their own robust foreign policies as opposed to just living off American largesse. Maybe they should stop kowtowing to, if they don't want to kowtow to the Russians, don't kowtow to the Russians. If you schmucks had actually done what you were supposed to before the Ukraine war, none of this would have happened. Instead, Germany decided to power its entire economy on unicorn farts and Russian oil. That seems to be the predictable response, is that Russia feels like it has leverage over Europe. Maybe Donald Trump will force you guys back into the realm of reality. According to the Washington Post, although they'd been preparing for months for a possible Trump comeback, European policymakers were facing the reality the continent is nowhere near Trump-proof, a realization made more stark this week by the collapse of the coalition government in Germany, Europe's largest economy and political heavyweight. While German politics are effectively paralyzed, and while European economies are struggling, policymakers acknowledge there's only so much leaders on the continent can do to deter Trump from launching a trade war, to reduce their dependence on the U.S. security umbrella, or to maintain American backing for Ukraine. So maybe they should do it themselves. I know, what a concept. What a concept. By the way, I know many European leaders, secretly, quietly, a lot of the European leaders, not the big ones who you hear about, not the Emmanuel Macrons, the other European leaders, the ones who actually live under Russian threat. Many of them are ecstatic that Trump was elected because they think that Joe Biden is a weakling, because he is. Well, joining us online is the brand newly elected senator from the state of Montana, replacing the execrable John Tester. Tim Sheehy joins us on the line. Tim, congrats on your big win.
Thanks, and thank you for your help up here. For those of you who don't know, Ben came up and did a fantastic event for us in Kalispell in the final weeks of the election. And it was events like that that really helped people crystallize what's at stake, because we had to save this country, and we did. And from coast to coast, all socioeconomic classes, all races, colors, creeds, a mandate was delivered that America wants to put America first again. And that's what we're going to do.
Yeah. So, Tim, obviously, you beat Tester pretty soundly here. You ended up flipping the seat by some 60,000 votes, 60,000 votes. In a state like Montana that doesn't have a giant population, that is a solid margin. You beat him 53 to 45, essentially. Those are big numbers. The state of Montana has been a red state. They've been hesitant to kick out John Tester because he's been masquerading for a long time as sort of a populist blue-collar guy. And I think that's one of the stories of this election, is that people who masquerade got tossed out of office.
Yeah, the Democrat Party, as I've been saying, that the D on the ballot no longer stands for Democrat, it stands for deception. This campaign ran by the Democrats up and down the ticket from Kamala Harris all the way to the bottom were campaigns of deception. I mean, as you well know, at the same time, Kamala Harris was running commercials that were pro-Israel in places that would help her, and pro-Palestine and pro-Hamas in places that were not. You had Bob Casey and John Tester and Slotkin and all these others running campaigns talking about how they were close to Trump, supported Trump's policies. Meanwhile, their voting record belied that and showed the truth that they have been 100% supporters of the Biden, Harris, Obama regime. So the deception collapsed. People were tired of the mainstream media complex. Another podcaster I love, Sean Ryan, who's a former SEAL like me, has a great, and he did a fantastic video in the wake of Joe Rogan's podcast with President Trump, 3-hour marathon, where no stone was left unturned, where he said what we just saw was the collapse of the credibility of the legacy media complex that has been manufacturing lies and false narratives that have been manipulating the voters of America for 50 years. And like John Thune just said in that audio clip you played, Americans said enough is enough. We're tired of narrative. We're tired of misconstrued facts. The truth is the truth. And mass illegal migration unchecked inflation, disastrous foreign policy decisions are bad. They're bad for our businesses. They're bad for our families. They're bad for our communities. And we are going to put our interests first. And as you heard me say at our rally, it's been a key part of my message. It's not too much to expect for the American people to expect from their government that they've elected and that they pay for every day with more and more burdensome taxes. It's not too much for them to expect that government should do what's best for them first. And that has not been what's happened in the last 3.5 years, and we're going to fix it.
Tim, one of the things that has happened is, as you say, people have not put America first. When America is strong, America ends up first, and the rest of the world benefits from that. That is the message of President Trump's first term. I think that's what you're going to see in his second term as well. The business community is ecstatic. They are over the moon about President Trump being elected. I mean, every business person that I know is just excited. Means that you're going to have a stable, solid ground to work upon. One of the big problems under Biden and under the Democrats is that they can just rip the carpet right out underneath you anytime you are trying to build a business. I mean, they can just destroy your business willy-nilly. Meanwhile, Trump is talking deregulation. The Senate is going to be involved, and I assume making the Trump tax cuts permanent, maybe going even further. It's going to be open. America's going to be open for business here.
That's exactly right. And the business leaders, a lot of whom, as you alluded to, it's kind of like the European leaders. They've been afraid to come out and stick their neck out. Thank God for Elon Musk making an unequivocal endorsement saying, I'm one of the most successful business leaders in America, and I can tell you without hesitation, without question, without qualification, that Donald Trump and the conservative policies he's championing are good for business, they're good for my employees, and we need to put them in the driver's seat. Because we've seen in the last 3.5 years, it really was a more extreme extension of the Obama policies, from 08, through 16, which is anti-business, which is more regulation, which is take your fate, and instead of owning it yourself, hand it to the government and hope that they do better. Take your financial fate, take the fate of your business, take the fate of your family, and abdicate it and hand it to government bureaucrats who have no accountability. They have no experience. I mean, look at Lena Khan, who's our FEC chair, who functionally has zero business experience of any kind. She's an academic who wrote a bunch of papers, and they've been put her on the bridge of the American economy, the most powerful economy in the history of the world. And she's done terrible, terrible things with it. And the number one most important single axiom of the American economy, that frankly is what set America apart since day one. America's magic has never been our government or our military. It's been the fact that we were the first country in history to have been based on the entrepreneurial spirit, the achievements of the individual, and the unleashing of the power of the individual. And that's realized through a free market economy and ultimately through small business. And what we've seen is a war on small business, a war on ingenuity, a war on hard work. And that's going to end. Donald Trump is going to get full support from the Senate. It's very clear that, what the Senate needs to be is not a rubber stamp for Donald Trump, but an engine for him, an engine to help him get these things done. Instead of just responding to his policy desires, we need to be a partner with his White House and with his appointees to ensure that we aren't just clearing the path for a bunch of executive orders that can get undone by the next president, like we've been seeing these last few administrations. We need to pass laws that enshrine these priorities in law that can't simply be undone by the next administration, like securing the border. Enough of this executive order to secure the border back and forth. We need to pass a law that will withstand judicial review at every step of the way to ensure that our border is secure, so we can protect the lives and livelihoods of our people.
Now, Tim Sheehy, one of the things that's amazing about you are an energetic dude. I mean, that is a long campaign, and I can sense that you are raring to go. You're going to get in Congress. And as you say, Senate needs to be an engine, needs to be moving fast because, you never know what the next election is going to bring, which means you got a 2-year period to do an enormous amount of things. And I know you're going to be a leader in doing that. Senator-elect Tim Sheehy from Montana, again, congratulations, and we'll see you in D.C.
Thanks, man. Let's get it done.
Alrighty, folks, just when the left and the first DEI presidential candidate thought their week couldn't get any worse, the weekend is here, and Am I Racist is streaming exclusively at Daily Wire Plus. Did you hear that? It is important. The only way you can catch Matt Walsh in the box office smash comedy and now the #1 documentary of the decade is with a Daily Wire Plus membership. If you're not a member yet, we've got you covered. Go to dailywire.com/subscribe. Use code Trump for 47% off new annual memberships. I should mention the new annual membership includes a Leftist Tears tumbler. Yes, you need it. It's been overflowing. And if you're short on leftist tears, this tumbler is the receptacle. You get that. You can drink it while you watch Am I Racist? We've got everything except the popcorn. So don't wait. Watch Am I Racist this weekend only on Daily Wire Plus. Go to dailywire.com/subscribe. Use code Trump for 47% off new annual membership. Okay, meanwhile, the left is in a state of complete meltdown. As you can sense, whenever we are optimistic here on the right, the left is very upset. Listen, I understand if you had misconceptions about Donald Trump, if you think that it's just going to be the end of the world, I get you being upset. Seriously, like, we're making a lot of fun. The people I'm trying to make fun of are not like normal American citizens who may have been misinformed or who may have a different belief system. The people I'm making fun of are the people at the top of the heap. The people I'm making fun of are the people at the top of the economic heap who should know better, who do know better, and who are lying. When they say that this is going to be Hitler, when they say that it's going to be brown shirts, when they say it's the end of America, none of that is true, and they know it's not true. And you can tell they know that it's not true. Those people, I don't even think that it's okay to laugh at. I think it's a duty to laugh at them. Because if you're a person who's deliberately misinforming the American public, we should laugh at you. And frankly, I think we should encourage you in your downward spiral if that downward spiral means that you lose more. Now, speaking of people who just keep losing, Joy Reid, who is not a repository of joy, she is out there blaming Latinos, of course, because Donald Trump won, according to some exit polls, 46% of the entire Latino vote. So that means that Joy Reid, because she's higher on the intersectional hierarchy than Latinos, she gets to say whatever she wants about Latino people now.
Also Latino men who, despite the utter disrespect shown by Trump and his promise to deport some of your mixed status families, most of them voted in a 55% majority to make the deportations happen. Y'all voted with Stephen Miller and David Duke and against your own sisters and chose Kamala Harris with 60% of their votes. So you own everything that happens to your mixed status families and to your wives, sisters, and abuelas from here on in.
Oh, man. Just keep going with this. Seriously, just keep going with this. Really, keep doubling down on this, Joy Reid. I really love it. More identity politics, more blaming Americans. Sunny Hostin joins the crew. She is also blaming Latino men. Now she says they're sexist. That's the real problem.
Latinos in Texas, a district that's 97% Latino, went 75 percentage points for Donald Trump. Why?
Misogyny.
It's on the border. The border crisis is on their doorstep. And they were begging people to care about it for years. We need to take some lessons.
That's what that was.
The lessons are not
Knock,
misogyny.
knock. Who's there? Oh, my gosh, it's Whoopi.
Oh, my goodness. These folks. Wow. Meanwhile, former vice chair of the DNC agrees. This is Michael Blake saying that Americans are racist. Just keep doing this, please. More. Pour it on. Keep calling Americans racist. Keep calling Latino men sexist. Please do it. Keep just yelling at the American people about how terrible they are for not having elected this absolute nothing burger of a candidate on a terrible agenda that Americans hate. Please keep telling Americans how they're the worst people ever. That's a way to victory. Do it. Do it.
Democrats, we have to be very clear of calling them on who they is. Donald Trump is a white supremacist who has a Project 2025 agenda that wants to implement that. And anyone who voted for those policies need to be clearly counted on that. When you see what happened on Tuesday, it was people, in particular, white men and white women, who unfortunately decided to not vote for the vice president, yet they elected black women in the Supreme Court in Michigan, yet we had victories in Ruben Gallegos going in Arizona, yet we had victories in North Carolina. It was the fear of a Black and South Asian woman that we have to speak about. And if we're not clear about race, gender, and class, we are ignoring the truth of what's happening in the country right now.
I mean, can I just point out that white people actually voted for Trump at a lower clip than they voted for him in 2020? That's actually what happened. The only constituency where Trump actually lost ground, he lost 1 point with white voters in 2024. And then he blew her out. Why? Because a bunch of people who weren't supposed to vote for him voted for him. But please keep going with this. How about Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez? Former bartender. She, Coyote Ugly over here. Here she is explaining how it's all misogyny and sexism that is responsible for Kamala Harris's loss.
The fact of the matter is, this race may not have been decided by any one individual factor, but misogyny is very, very real in this country. As another widely known woman of color in office, I knew that sexism and racism were real, but it was not until I got subjected to a national stage that I actually was shocked at how bad it is. You grow up with it, but There is something about being on the receiving line or just nationally exposed to millions of eyeballs at once that you feel that fire hose and you actually understand how deeply ingrained it is. And it is not partisan. It is it transcends.
More tears. More. I require more tears. More. Okay, so I have some more tears for you. How about professor and New York Times columnist Tressie McMillan Copham urging Dems to double down on identity politics, like on Comedy Central? Because it's been working so well, they need more of it. Please be my guest. Please keep going. Please.
As Donald Trump has proven, what he has proven and the way he has won has proven is that every voter has an identity. Every voter has an identity, and he tapped into one of the most powerful of American identities. He tapped into white identity. Right? And he said, you don't need to be ashamed of this identity. I'm going to give it a name, and I'm going to make you feel good about it, and you don't have to sacrifice a thing. Donald Trump played identity politics like a fiddle. So when you say that the Democrats lose because we play identity politics, it simply isn't true. This is about whose identities win when you appeal to them. That means you should double down on the identities of your base.
Oh, please keep doing this. By the way, Trump did not run on identity politics. He ran on the reverse. You guys ran on the idea that everybody's a member of a race or a class. Donald Trump ran on the idea that everybody wants American opportunity and you should leave us the hell alone. That's what he ran on. But again, I keep keep going down this rabbit hole. Please. It'll be great. I think that'll be excellent. Meanwhile, the actual tears are breaking out. Apparently, Harvard professors have been canceling class, which is exciting because probably the kids are learning more not being in class than being in class. According to the Harvard Crimson, students awoke to a somber campus following Donald Trump's re-election to the presidency early Wednesday. My heart dropped a little bit, one student said. Apparently, professors have decided to cancel some classes. They encourage students to process in the aftermath of the election, adjusting course requirements in kind. Courses like Sociology 1156, Statistics for Social Sciences, and Applied Math 22A, Solving and Optimizing, as well as several general education courses, including the Ancient Greek Hero and Popular Culture in Modern China, canceled their classes Wednesday, made attendance optional, or extended assignment deadlines. Man, one of the more fun experiences of my life, actually, I remember the 2004 election. I was at Harvard Law School during the 2004 election. I remember that night, John Kerry, who was from Massachusetts, of course, he had set up his victory party just a few stops away on the line. And I remember everybody was prepping for a Kerry victory. And then, of course, he lost. And the next day was just a joy. It was just wonderful. I was walking around campus, having voted for George W. in 2004. And everybody was so upset and down. All I thought to myself was, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. And y'all seem real. You know what? I hope that the people at Harvard continue to spiral the toilet, because frankly, my alma mater is not in good shape anyway. Meanwhile, again, it is fun to watch the celebs. The celebs are also freaking out over at the New York Times. My goodness. I mean, they're going to need some serious opiates over there. The New York Times had all the members of their editorial page talk about the worst version of a Trump administration, what a nightmare it would be. They apparently took it from inside some sort of pantry somewhere without any makeup, looking like an outtake from 10 Cloverfield Lane. Here's Ezra Klein and the rest of the photogenic crew at the New York Times explaining how everyone will die and the earth will explode in a ball of fire because Donald Trump is going to win.
The worst version of a Donald Trump administration is very, very bad.
One that is not only extremist, but also effective in that extremism.
Emboldened by a series of Supreme Court rulings, perhaps bolstered by support in both houses of Congress, Trump will fulfill his promise to be a dictator on day one.
He sends troops into neighborhoods like my own to try to round up undocumented immigrants, that he sets up a network of camps.
Mass deportations. It would likely plunge the United States into something like a recession. His tariffs likewise, promised to spike prices for most Americans and cause costs to go up dramatically.
That version of Trump could result in abandoning Ukraine to advancing Russian armies, could result in extraordinarily erratic foreign policy in the Middle East.
I mean, Donald Trump often talked about things like bombing Mexico to deal with drug cartels. People stopped him from doing that.
But there's not going to be any adults in the room this time.
The worst version of a Trump administration seeks various forms of retribution against Trump's enemies, real and perceived.
What a terrible editorial page they have.
Uses the power
Truly
given to him to harass and undermine his political opposition.
This leads to substantial resistance, mass protest, and also drives his enemies into a cycle of radicalization, intensifying unrest and conflict.
And in the process, doing profound and possibly permanent
He's the only one who talks about the left here.
Democracy.
Basically, when nothing we can do by voting or using our existing institutions will reverse the consolidation of power.
They
I can't believe these people.
Democracy ending, if really manifest in the ways that he and other conservatives have discussed them.
And I have a great fear that that's exactly what's going to happen over the next 4 years.
Wow. Well, your fears, I feast upon them. I feast upon them because the things that you're saying are ridiculous. Ridiculous. I mean, some of them I hope happen. Frankly, I hope that President Trump makes our enemies fearful. I hope that President Trump restores the constitutional order by firing a bunch of people in the executive branch. But most of that stuff is just you guys, getting high off your own farts in the car. So perhaps you ought to take a second look at your life right now. You got everything wrong in this election. Maybe you're getting that wrong too. It's funny. They make all these mistakes and then they never actually take in the mistakes that they've made. It's really incredible. Nicole Wallace over on MSNBC, she has announced that she is deleting her Twitter. Well, don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you, lady.
I have this sort of insatiable interest in every bit of wisdom you can impart. And as a journalist, I hear you about girding ourselves for this moment. As a human, I deleted Twitter today as an act of self-preservation, and because I was no longer able to find the things I was interested in and was seeing a lot of things that I'm not.
Well, a sad story for all of you. Again, as they shed their tears, Donald Trump is just moving forward. This is an administration that is going to staff up. From what I see, the staffing decisions look good. It looks like an administration that wants to hit the ground running because Trump's done this before. And again, that I'm unaccustomed to this sort of optimism. I'm just not used to it, folks. I'm gonna have to take the weekend to rest up and recover and then come back with my A game because frankly, I'm short on sleep, but I'm high on life because it was a good week and hopefully next week will be just as good. In just a moment, we're gonna get to the resistance. Yes, Democrats are trying to figure out how they resist. If you're not a member, become a member, use code Shapiro, check out for 2 months free on all annual plans. Click that link in the description and join us.